all the things that we have going on with all of you today. And I first want to introduce and thank Kim Dodson for being here with us. I think she's someone who hardly needs an introduction in the disability world, but we so appreciate that she's been willing to be here this morning. I'm sure most of you know, but I want to just say Kim Dodson is the CEO of the ARC of Indiana, and she's definitely leader in advocating for our individuals with developmental disabilities, and is going to update us on what's going on legislatively. This long and intense legislative session at the State House, and tell us what we can do to maybe help her out. So thanks so much for being here this morning, Kim, and I really do appreciate your time and for you being able to share with us today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Julie. And it's great actually to be invited to talk to you guys. It's been a while since I've attended an IIACC meeting, and it sounds like you guys are still doing wonderful and great things, and always have a very busy agenda that tries to get done. So thank you for the work that you guys do. I really do appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what's going on at the State House as well as in DC, and hopefully encourage you guys to advocate alongside with us, because it's going to be a bumpy ride, quite honestly. So for those of you, again, I'm Kim Dodson. I'm the CEO for the ARC of Indiana. My passion and my background has always been in public policy. So ever since college, I have worked with U.S. Congress people at the Indiana State House, and as a lobbyist before I came to the ARC and then became CEO. So I've had a lot of different lenses in the public policy space. So it is something that I am passionate about. I keep trying to get unpassionate, if that's a word, about it, but I have failed miserably. So I have decided to own it. And I think it's a good time to own it, because I do think the next 2 to 4 years are going to be really difficult to us. And I don't necessarily mean that to be a partisan statement. I think just if you're reading the news, that all eyes are on Medicaid one way or another. And I think we are wrong if we don't think that services and Medicaid programs that really help people with intellectual and developmental disabilities aren't going to get impacted to a certain extent. So I first just kind of want to start about the climate that we're in. And I think it's an ever-changing climate. And I think that's really hard to grapple with, because I don't know about you, I hate social media, because you get on there and some things are just false. And then it gets all of this anxiety and stress stirred up amongst families. I always then have to try to go through to say, where was the inaccurate information given, and try to correct it, and hope that everybody who saw that and is upset by it sees the correction and hopefully finds a little bit of peace in the accurate information being shared out there. I think that there's just a lot of information and things are changing quickly. So sometimes it's an unintended error, right? That something is correct one day, and literally within 24 hours, it's out of date and not correct. And I don't know how to fix that. So if anybody has any suggestions, please send those to me because we are trying to get information out as quickly as possible. I would really encourage everybody to sign up for any advocacy group that you are close to, anything that they are doing around public policy and legislation. Sign up for their updates, because that's where I honestly think you're going to get the most accurate information about what's going on and what needs to be done. I'm going to start just a little bit at the federal level, not because it's the easiest place, but just because it's I don't know, in the forefront of my mind. You all probably have seen that last week the House of Representatives passed a bill that called on an $880 billion cut to programs, including Medicaid, over the next 10 years. So what I have, as I've been talking to people, and I'm kind of tired of this phrase, and sorry for those of you who don't know me, I'm usually pretty candid with my remarks, so apologies in advance, but I want to talk directly. I'm tired of the phrase of people saying it's not our intent, right? So legislators, people in DC are telling me, Kim, it's not our intent to damage Medicaid for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But then when I talk to them about what they're trying to do, I don't think they understand sometimes the unintended consequences of some of their actions. And I think that's what we have to be able to talk to them about, and again, share our stories about how important Medicaid is to people with disabilities and those we care about. So $880 billion over a decade. That's just a lot of money, right? And yes, there's a lot of conversation around making sure that Medicaid is sustainable financially. Yes, of course, right? We want that. We want to make sure that there's not fraud. Yes, of course. And I will be very honest, up until a couple years ago, I very much was a person saying there's not as much, fraud as you think there is. People aren't taking advantage of this system. That's really something that's not as big of an issue as lawmakers are making out to be. I think there's some truth to what they're saying. I think there is some fraud and abuse taking place in the Medicaid system, not necessarily all around, again, the space that we live in, but across the Medicaid space. I really do think that there are some billing errors that are being done, some providers taking care of the system, and some families who have taken care of the system. That's not a good path for anybody. So they're weighing in on trying to, rein in that fraud and abuse. We do want that, right? But again, we just want it done in a smart way that doesn't have these unintended consequences. And it's done, quite honestly, in a slow and thoughtful way. I again have been talking to people about these knee-jerk reactions of making all of these changes without the data, right? Let's know some of the information of, whatever issue it is you're trying to resolve. Let's get the data so that we know that whatever solution you're putting in place is actually going to take care of the issue you're trying to resolve. And it's getting very mixed results because some people just think we need to act fast. If we make errors, we'll correct them. I don't know about you, but I've been doing this long enough that I know that correcting errors takes a long, long time. And when you're talking specifically around Medicaid and people's lives, that's extremely dangerous, right? Because as people lose services or lose access to important prescriptions or whatever else, their lives are going to be impacted in a very detrimental way. So I think we need to be concerned about that. Before I move off from the federal level, I would just say we are really trying to get anyone and everyone to contact your local congressperson and our two senators. And just even do a letter of introduction. It does not have to be deep in detail at all whatsoever. A simple, email to your congressperson that just says, hi, this is who you are. This is why you care about Medicaid. So whatever that personal paragraph is, right? You have a son, daughter, you work at a clinic that provides services. All of those voices are extremely important. Do that and just say, I want to be a resource to you. As Medicaid continues to have these deep conversations over the next few months and even years, please know that I am a resource for you in your area. If you want to meet somebody who utilizes these services, I can make that connection. If you want to understand really how this program works, I can be a resource to you. Most legislators, and this is more so at the state level than DC, are looking for resources in their local community. So if you put yourself out there as the expert and a resource, you could very well start engaging in that type of a conversation and relationship with your lawmaker. And that is just really important and needs to be done. I'm going to change now to just the climate that we're in the State House. A little different, but not very much. It's still very much changing on a day-to-day basis. We were really glad that the budget, as it passed out of the House of Representatives last week, or a week ago or 2 weeks ago, did include fully funding Medicaid and the forecast in which it's supposed to grow over the next 2 years. So it's about a 6.7% increase is what is predicted for Medicaid over the next 2 years. In Governor Braun's budget asked for that to be funded, and the House of Representatives passed a budget with that Medicaid. It did not include anything around the Medicaid waiver waiting list, unfortunately, though. So right now we have about 19,000 people who are on waiting lists for Medicaid waivers. So that's all of the waivers other than the CIH waiver and the TBI waiver. Um, that 20,000 plus, person waiting list almost happened automatically last July when we kind of changed our waiver program. So I'm old, so I've been around a long time. So when I started with the ARC in 1998, I came to the ARC. We had a waiting list of over 20,000 people, and the waiting list was about 20 years long. So imagine that for a second, right? So as children were being diagnosed, either prenatally or post-birth, and being diagnosed with a disability, we were telling families to get onto the Medicaid waiver waiting list then in hopes that their child would have access to the waiver upon graduation from high school. So thankfully, times had changed, right? And we have gotten so much better. But unfortunately, again, with all of the changes that happened in Medicaid in 2024, we are back to having a 20,000 person waiting list. Right now, depending on the waiver, the wait can be anywhere between 2 and 4 years. But we know that there's a lot more demand for the waivers that's coming, just because we have an aging population, that we are really concerned that we are going to again grow that Medicaid waiver waiting list to being over 5-10 years. And that again is just not good for anybody. It does really put people at risk of going into a nursing facility, a group home, or some other type of institution. So we're very concerned about that. Very much at the state level, we're getting told the same thing, right? It's not our intent to cut services to people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. However, last year in 2024, when we were faced with the $1 billion shortfall within Medicaid, I started to get a lot of phone calls from lawmakers not understanding kind of what Medicaid was, how it impacted people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and then some of the changes that were taking place. So as I started meeting with legislators, it was very clear to me that many of them did not even have a basic understanding of Medicaid. Which is okay, because Medicaid is very complex and we have a part-time legislature, and we can't expect them to be experts in everything. However, they should have a basic understanding of Medicaid. And when I even informed them that Indiana has 37 programs within Medicaid, their eyes were very open, very wide open, and said that they had no idea that our Medicaid system was so complex. So again, it's my concern that as they start making changes in Medicaid, there's going to be some of these unintended consequences, because it's not a one-size-fits-all program. It is very, very catered to the population in which it is built to help. And so again, we just have to be very thoughtful to any changes. We are closely working with legislators, one, to again make sure they understand how people with disabilities utilize Medicaid, and how we specifically utilize Medicaid so that people can gain independence, that they can have access to health care, that they can potentially get a job, that they can live on their own, that they can do all of the things that they want to do to have a meaningful and fulfilling life. And when we talk about that, legislators start nodding their head, but they, again, don't necessarily understand how all of that happens. So we're doing a lot of education right now. We, again, are very much asking for people to, reach out to their local legislator and, again, tell that personal story of how you or a loved one utilizes Medicaid. And again, all lenses are important. So not just the person with lived experience, not just their family, but their providers of services, board members of any advocacy organizations that works with them, any of their therapists, their direct support professional. all eyes who really have a lens on, again, how important Medicaid and specifically Medicaid waivers are to people, I think is really important. I'm going to go back to a second to the federal level because something I forgot to mention that I think is something we just need to be aware of. Medicaid waivers are optional services under the Medicaid program. So Medicaid is an entitlement program for some populations, but home and community-based services, and specifically the waivers, are an optional services, which means the federal government could choose not to do them. So they could choose to end Medicaid waivers. Our state of Indiana could choose to end Medicaid waivers. And the reason why I've brought this up recently is because when I look at Washington, D.C. specifically, Indiana is one of only a handful of states without any state-run institutions for people with disabilities. So the majority of Congress are very comfortable with institutions. They are very comfortable with, warehousing people in a very segregated environment at a large scale and maintaining their lives. They have not yet fully invested in Medicaid waivers and home and community-based services like Indiana has. And I think that's just something that we need to be concerned about because again, our delegation in DC would be among the minority talking about these services. And again, I think we just have to be eyes wide open as to what does that mean. Fortunately for us, here in Indiana, I think we have a lot of people within the Braun administration who are very proud to have been a part of the closing of state institutions. So Secretary Robe was in the position of FSSA secretary back in 2009 when we closed our state institution. It's one of the things that he touts as being one of his proudest moments. So I think he would certainly fight alongside with us as this conversation happened. But if the federal government drastically cut funding and Indiana really had to think through the services that they could afford to provide, I think that's just where we have to have some awareness that there is a risk to that, and we need to realize that jeopardy lays out there, and we just need to, make sure that we're aware of it and that we're ahead of the game and talking again about the importance of Medicaid, so lawmakers really do understand the importance of that. Going back to the state for a second, I do want to talk specifically about some legislation going through. Certainly one of the things that I think you guys would be most interested with and probably very aware of is the conversation that had been taking place around ABA services. So does everybody know about that conversation that's been taking place? We've been paying attention to that really since December of 2024. So that was when we went to a state budget committee and the secretary of FSSA, or the Medicaid director at that time, talked about their interest and their moving forward with a Medicaid state plan amendment to the federal government that would limit ABA services to no more than 30 hours per week and a retroactive lifetime cap of 36 months. So as I reacted probably the same way all of you did, was no, right? We can't make that happen. It was really difficult because we had the old administration kind of, moving out of the government center. We had a new administration moving into the government center. It took us a little bit of time to kind of figure out who was leading that charge. And so we started having conversations and sending a lot of information specifically to Governor Braun and those on his team about just the potential impact that those type of caps was going to have on a lot of different people here in our state. So over the I don't know, January and early February, it was a lot of conversations, but then we finally did get some good news that they were hearing us and knew that their current path was not the right path. So they did change the language in the state plan amendment. They did move away from the retroactive 36-month cap. I will be the first to say that I don't think the language in the state plan amendment is perfect, but I think it was what needed to be done to get things stopped of the train that it was going, and to potentially have better results ahead. So the language that did move forward in the state plan amendment does still limit hours of ABA per week, depending on the level of disability that one has, both the level of autism and then if they have a different diagnosis, what their needs are. All of those can be appealed, and you know, you can get more hours if you prove that you need more. So there is a process in place for that. FSSA felt very strongly to get the program under financial constraints, that they still did need a 36-month cap, but they very much reacted the same way of it cannot be retroactive. And our hope in that is that now that we have the federal or the state plan amendment going through, the governor has created a working group around ABA, and that's going to start meeting sometime, late spring, I hope, that we're now going to have 3 years to get that 36-month cap stopped. Right. So we're going to start talking with this group about collecting some data. What is best practices? Let's know who we're talking about, what we're talking about. Let's engage in some education so that Secretary Robe and others around him, lawmakers, truly understand the intent of ABA services, the good that can come out of that. And again, make sure that any changes made to the program are really done with best practices in mind, not harming people in mind. And hopefully through that, we can get some financial kind of just breathing room as well. This is another area where I do think we had some bad players, people who came into Indiana, taking advantage of the very good insurance mandate that we have, and some of the more lax protocol that we have in becoming a provider. I think all of that is going to be looked at with this task force. I think we are going to continue to promote. This is something that ARC of Indiana has really been promoting for the last several years, and it's just never really gotten much traction, as some type of accreditation and accountability of all of our independent ABA centers. There needs to be some oversight there. We need to make sure that people are utilizing best practices and we have good people delivering those services. So that's one of the issues that's being discussed. Real quickly, I want to talk about some other stuff because I really do want to get to some very specific questions if you guys have them. We are closely watching several pieces of legislation. House Bill 1689 is a bill that we are spearheading. It very much deals with Medicaid as it was changed in 2024, specifically around medically complex people, both children and adults. Again, a lot of the changes that came out of that $1 billion shortfall on Medicaid was, again, how I describe knee-jerk reactions, right? Let's make a change because we see this as an area, not really understanding the full result of some of those changes. We're really wanting a more transparent process, both on the health and wellness waiver and on extraordinary care given to, again, those medically complex people. We think that, as the state is working on more waiver language, both in the family support waiver, the health and wellness waiver, the CIH waiver, we want to make sure we have a good definition of extraordinary care. We want to make sure that we have a good definition for structured family caregiving. We want to make sure that structured family caregiving is used and used appropriately for the people that it's intended to serve. So if you were paying much attention to this, the state shoved a lot of those medically complex children into structured family caregiving in 2024. Structured family caregiving was never, ever, ever created to help children and specifically people with medically complex needs. So we're wanting to really have a more transparent conversation. Let's work through these issues together. We're asking DDRS to bring the conversation around their state plan amendments that are going in 2025 to the Division of Disability and Rehabilitation's advisory groups, the DDRS Advisory Council, so that we can engage in a conversation. Parents sit on that council. People with disabilities sit on that council. Advocacy groups sit on that council. We want to be able to ask questions. We want to be able to respond in real time to what they are thinking. And we think that that more transparent conversation hopefully will lead to better results and a more well-intentioned amendment going into CMS. So we're working on that. One of the other pieces of legislation is around special education. This is House Bill 1285. This is, I think for the last 2 years, it's been known as the camera bill. Again, if you're paying attention to the news media, we've had a lot of special education students have been abused in schools, and those horrible situations have made the news. We have heard from a lot of families who, they say if we would have just known, if we could just go back and see what happened, then we would know better, quite honestly, of how to help my child through this horrible incident and work with the school to make sure it never happens again and hold people accountable, right? We want to do all of those things. Cameras in classrooms has really gotten a lot of pushback. However, I will say this year specifically, the people who represent the schools are not arguing about the policy. They have really stepped away from arguing that teachers don't want to be on cameras. They are really focused on the cost and the cost that it would take to put cameras in classrooms. The bill does some other things. So if you've ever been to a case conference committee or had the good fortune to be a part of one, I have, they're horrible, right? Then you know that they can be so emotional and difficult. There are some schools out there who do not allow parents to record those meetings. And yes, Indiana is a one-party recording state, but a school can have a policy that circumvents that. And we want parents to be able to record those settings. We know that not always is both set of parents able to be in there. So we want them to be able to have that recording that they can go back and re-listen to what was said. Maybe, listen to it a few times so that they can take away some of the emotion out of it and really, get down to what was said in that meeting. And again, what needs to be done to make sure that their student makes, the best educational progress that they can. So that's one part of that. We also have a practice in our state where, unfortunately, we have too many children committing suicide, and too many students who their desks and their lockers are cleaned out before the parents and family have an opportunity to go in and collect those belongings themselves. I can only imagine how horrible that is and how traumatic that would be. So the bill does state that, when a student passes away, and or leaves a school, that the family is given, an opportunity to go in to clean out those belongings themselves. It has access to those personal belongings, and the school just doesn't throw them away, and the parent doesn't have access to them. Senate Bill 2 is another bill. This bill is a lot wrapped up into one. So this is the bill that the state is using to rein in some Medicaid cost around the Healthy Indiana program. And really, this is what you're seeing on the news around people who are capable of working in and on Medicaid should be forced to work. So this is the bill that is putting forth the idea about work requirements to continue to remain on Medicaid. This is the program that cuts and eliminates about 180,000 people off of that program. This is the program that puts some things in place for hospitals to access some fees that hospitals are paying. This is also the bill that tells us as the Arc of Indiana, and I'm sure many of you who work with organizations, that you can no longer advertise or market Medicaid. So how that impacts the Arc of Indiana is that we go to transition and resource fairs. We have tables that talk to parents and people with disabilities about resources in their local communities and at the state that could help them achieve their dreams, achieve the life that they want to live, help them become more independent, help them get a job. We will no longer be able to do that if this language in Senate Bill 2 moves forward. So we are working very closely with the administration and with lawmakers to see if we can change that language specifically around advertising and marketing. Because again, this is where language has unintended consequences, right? People are telling me all the time at the State House, Kim, we're not trying to do anything that harms the ARC. We want the Anthems and the Uniteds and the care sources in the world to quit advertising that they have Medicaid available to people on billboards, on radio, on TV, because we don't want that much growth in the program. However, their language is not written enough or written well enough that it doesn't have those unintended consequences. So we're working on all of that. It is 9:35 and I have to be off of here in 15 minutes. So I'm going to stop. I certainly did not talk about all of the bills that we are monitoring. There are a lot of bills out there that could potentially impact the life of somebody with an intellectual and developmental disability and the programs that we care about. If anybody has specific questions, please feel free to email me with any of those and or ask a question. I will say this before I open it up. If you don't know who your legislators are, you can easily find out. So you can go to our website, which is arcind.org. On our website, you will then see public policy. Click on public policy. Then if you scroll down, there will be a line that says find your legislator. Click on that. You will go in. You can put it, you will need to put in your address. And then once you put in your address, you will learn who your local state senator is, your local House of Representative member. You will see who your U.S. congressman is, and then you will get the addresses of both of our U.S. senators. Once you click on the picture of whoever it is you're trying to email, it will come up with a contact me. So then you can send an email to that person. Sometimes they put an email address that you can send a letter to. Sometimes it's a form that you fill out. All of those are okay. All of those work just fine. So please, please, please join us in this advocacy. Work alongside with us to contact our legislators and educate them. We're going to be talking about this a lot over the next 2 and 4 years. There's too much that can happen that we should not all be working together and kind of pooling together all of our resources and the strength of the families that we care about. So I really hope that we can find ways to work together. And I think this is a really good first step. So again, appreciate Julie reaching out and inviting me. I'm going to try to look at the chat to see if there's some questions I can answer, but please don't let that stop people from just asking questions unless, Tiffany, there's a different way that you guys wanted to handle this.
I know there's a lot of questions if you wanted to just work through those, or I can read them either way, whichever is easier for you. And then I had a few that were things that we can help share out in terms of recommended sites and things like that for finding a local advocacy group and such, given the amount of misinformation. And then also, we know there's a lot of social engineering going on and what are appearing in people's feeds. So some of those recommendations, but we can hit on maybe a few of the questions here in chat if that works. Do you
Yeah,
want me to read them? Is that easier?
no, I think I see them. So
Okay.
just let me know if I miss a big one.
Okay.
So Kate, you asked about information and communication among providers, specifically about RBT. Yes, that actually has been an issue. It's my understanding that there is a group of people that I've at least talked to that are trying to get some language into a Senate bill. Yet this session that kind of helps with that issue. So I think that conversation has been elevated elevated a lot to legislators, and they're paying attention. And I also know that it's been elevated to Secretary Robe's level. And so he's at least asked questions about it. So yes, all of that is happening. Any updates on the changes to the FSW waiver, limit the number of slots? Yes. Yes, they're all of the waiver slots, very few, increased waiver slots have gone in, on our Medicaid waivers. The FSW and the CIH, waiver that will get renewed in July. There is not enough waiver slots being asked for that will even make a dent into the waiting list. So that is something that needs to continue to be elevated to, again, our lawmakers. Write public comments, please, please, please write public comments on all of these waiver amendments as they go out. Again, if you're paying attention to any of your advocacy groups, they should be letting you know when those public comments are open, and helping you with some bullet points of some of the key things to highlight in your comments. So, and unfortunately, those slots just are not where they need to be. Do you know if there's a specific max number of hours approved for the weekly hours with the changes? I assume you're talking about for that ABA. Yes, there are. And I don't want to say those right now off the top of my head because I think I would get them wrong. But I think it's 30 hours or more. So it's 30 hours. I'm going against what I just said, right? So I think it's 30 hours for level 1, level 2. I think it's 36 hours for level 2, and then 38 hours for level 3. But again, the opportunity to get more hours if proof can be provided that more hours is needed. I don't know about how one can become a member of the task force. So I know that it is Secretary Robe and Secretary of Education, Katie Jenner, who is putting together the task force. It is a joint task force around education because FSSA and the administration really thinks that more schools should be offering ABA services in school. So they want the schools to be ready for this, and they want to be included in the conversation. I would say if you are interested, I would contact your local legislator, express your interest, express why you would be a good candidate for the task force, and see if your legislator will put your name out there. I don't know how those are being chosen. I do know that there have been conversations taking place around the task force. I don't even know when it's going to start. As I get more of that information, I'll send it out to Julie and Tiffany so you guys have that latest information. Senate Bill 2, is it specifically around Medicaid insurance plans? No, it's around Medicaid in general, which is why it's so problematic. It's extremely vague and very, very broad. I honestly think it's unconstitutional, but since I'm not going to be the one telling or proving that it's unconstitutional, and I know that's going to have to go through courts, I'm still trying to get that language narrowed in the legislation, so that we don't have to wait until it's called unconstitutional to continue to do the work that we do and so many others. But that language is extremely broad. One thing, so Tiffany, thank you for your comment around how communicating. The one thing I would say is please, 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 please do not send a letter to your people in Washington, D.C. Letters get caught up in a very, very stringent security system when all mail goes to Washington, D.C. to the Hill. It will be 4 to 6 months before they get your letter. So do not send them a letter. Do not send them any type of correspondence. Email your federal delegation. Yes, so there is a lot of things happening with the U.S. Department of Education. There is information coming out. At least I know from the ARC of the United States, we are analyzing not only that executive order and what they're hearing, but there's also been some changes within Medicaid, some things moving out of the rulemaking process, some things moving only to the rulemaking process. A lot of stuff in DC is being analyzed. And as soon as, again, more information is known about that, we'll share it. I know sometimes people get frustrated with me and with us at the ARC, because as soon as something happens, we don't necessarily put it out there. The reason is we want to check our information. We want to try to make sure that we are sharing thoughtful and accurate information with you. So we do kind of make sure to run our traps and get a good understanding of what something says. Again, potentially weed through some of the unintended consequences before we share some of that information. But we will certainly share that information as soon as we get it. Thank you, Tiffany, for putting those links in there. Let's see. I think I got through them. Anything else that I missed?
I had those couple of questions just in terms of finding advocacy groups. If you had recommendations, again, because I think there's a lot of groups that people can attach to or become, tied to, as well as the fact checking and coping resources. So as you're rounding out, those were just things to help at the local levels also.
Yeah, I think several of us, I mean, certainly you're connected to, Hands on Autism and your autism group. Most of their websites probably have a list of resources. Go to that resource list. I know the ARC of Indiana, we have resources. That might be a good place to go to see some other advocacy groups that are available. So if you have interests that are more narrow than, what we are with all intellectual and developmental disabilities and all age groups, if you want to know specifically around kids issues or specifically around adult issues, there might be some resources on the websites of the people that you do. This will be one place where I will put a plug in for social media. Google, right? Google to see if there's a public policy or an advocacy group that's interested in the public policy issue that you are. If you can't find somebody, email me, please. I don't want the difficulty of personalizing a story or the difficulty of locating who to contact or who to get an email or how to get engaged to stop you. If you have interest, please reach out to me and we will help you. Again, I think it is more important than ever that we have strength in numbers. And I think that at the end of the day is what's going to get and keep attention. Usually I am not a fan of form letters or petitions. However, I do think that this is again going to be a time where there's going to, need to be a mass showing of support and concern about specific issues. So I would absolutely say if you see a petition come around about saving Medicaid or talking about Medicaid, please sign your name. I think that we're going to resort to all levels of grassroots lobbying at this point, just because I think there's too much at stake for us not to be concerned. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast. There was a lot of information I wanted to get through.
The only other thing I just wanted to even clarify, because you mentioned the public comments on the bills and connecting with legislators on that or watching, is there a good place to watch for that just as another advocacy path?
Yep. So again, if you go to our website, arcind.org, hit on that public policy, the same place where you can find out where you're a legislator. There's also a line that says sign up for our weekly legislative memos and alerts. Every single Friday, we send something out that talks about what happened this week and what is happening next week. So that is where you can get, real live information about where things are at the state level specifically. And we usually, include some of the things at the federal level as well. We usually have some links on there about who to contact and where to find out where, how to contact their emails. So please do that. If you're interested in watching a committee at any point, you can do that at in.gov. That is the best place to go there. It's a little bit choppier to figure out. You have to go to in.gov, you have to go to the General Assembly, and then you have to go to like the committees and that kind of stuff. So again, if you have any questions and you're interested in that, don't hesitate to email me with questions. I'll help you navigate all of that.
Thank you so much, Kim, for being here today. You are awesome, and I've never had like a 45, 50 minutes of a meeting go by so quickly. I was enthralled by all you were saying, and I appreciate you sharing, and I look forward to spending time with you again next week. But thank you so much for your time today, for all the work that you do for the people that we care about, and for sharing your information. We really do appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the meeting.
You too.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Thank you.
So moving along, topically into areas that we've been working on, but really wanted to start embedding more of the legislative updates and how the council, our work around the plan and your voices and belonging at the table can be best represented. We wanted to share just some quick updates on the Autism Engagement Network. Bodhi, can you go on? To give context, I know most of you have been on the meetings in the past, but we like to give a little bit of framing for what we're going to work on today and where our team and the IIACC play a role in the broader state context. Our team is excited and has been facilitating the IIACC for the past 11 years. That means that we're able to help with data collation and work with researchers or connect with different bodies that'll help in sharing and moving the plan along. But our eye and our heart is always on assuring consumer benefits and assuring that we're helping process or facilitate systems of implementation. At the state level, the voice around these issues is the IIACC. So again, that's one that we prepare our reports, we prepare slicks, we try to carry the data and voices forward for groups like the ARC of Indiana and others. One of the guiding documents that I nested here, because that'll be a focus of this morning's activities, is the comprehensive state plan. So we revise this every 2 years, and this year is the cycle to revise the goals and see where we're at and making progress on the goals that were set a couple years ago. So I'll give more context as we move along. The other piece that is very integral to this process and the way that we facilitate the IIACC is having that local community voice, which is represented by our LCCs or local community cadres. And those have been around for 15 years, but in the same regard have ebbed and flowed as needed with different changes and different dynamics, but is one thing that'll be a focus as we move into 2025 and moving ahead. Ultimately, all of that work is to help inform and create readiness for change from the state level down to communities. And ultimately, all of us have focus on supporting parents, caregivers, and individuals in their day-to-day life. And as Kim mentioned, really maximizing quality of life and access to resources and being there and helping engage in those collective voices as well. So we offer a number of ways to engage and highlight those. And it's just to give context, not to give any more depth per se. But really key focus areas for the IIACC are dissemination of fact-based and reflective voices, whether that's through newsletter, social media, or other slicks or one-pagers that we're able to provide to legislators and community members. Being able to foster community engagement. So I'll give some highlights on our most recent surveying and interviews through our needs assessment. Continuing to update and utilize the information network, and then again, the local community cadre network. We want to advance research-based practices and get those in people's hands so they know, aside from what Medicaid is, what the services look like, what are the stories, what are the impacts. So being able to share state and national data and really using the collective impact and implementation science strategies to make sure that we're facilitating that most fluidly. Ultimately, wanting to facilitate networking. As Kim was mentioning, all of us, connect with different communities. We may be involved in, one that's very much about workplace readiness, another that's involved around autism, another that's involved around, basic life needs or medically complex situations and behavioral health. So being able to find your circles and to have that chance to network and have that common reference. So I'll pass it off to Bodhi for some data.
Thank you. So as part of our ongoing efforts to ensure engagement and networking, we always try to record the people who attend our meetings just to have an idea of where they're coming from and the counties they represent. So this is just a chat showing the March IAC meeting RSVP by sector, and we can see for this RSVP we had healthcare having the highest attendance, followed by education. This is not always reflective of the people who actually attend the meetings eventually, but just showing like the people who are engaging, as well as the counties. So our top counties for this month is Marion County, followed by Hamilton and others, as you can see. For our IIACC quarterly Facebook page, we've had some good number of views over the past 3 months. Our followers have also increased on Facebook, and we are currently reaching about 10 countries and cities. On our information network page, we currently have, for the past 3 months, we had about 691 active users and 680 new users. So we are always constantly having new people who always come to our page, which is good. It tells us that people are engaging and want to find out information about um, information network, IIAC, or any resource they can lay their hands on. So just in similar to that is stakeholder highlights. So as what we do at IIAC, we always encourage stakeholder highlights. So we would like you to share at least one highlight about your organization related to autism or developmental disabilities. So this could be a new initiative, ongoing initiatives or awards, events to share, etc. And you can also submit your upcoming events by clicking on the link here, and it goes directly to our information network page. So all we just need to do is review the information and click post, and it's going to be shared on our calendars and all other platforms that we use to disseminate information. So we thought to mention that. And this is what it looks like. So if you click on the page that says submit an upcoming event, if there's an event you want us to help you publicize, all you just need to do is click on that link and it takes you to a page. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you're going to see something that looks like this on the left that says submit an event. It's going to ask you for your name and your email, and then you can put in all the event details and information that you want. And then on the right, this is what it looks like. So we currently have this event for May. And once you click on the calendar in the information network page, it pops up your event or whatever you want us to help disseminate. So we thought to share that. And just for your information as well, we have categories. So if you look on the top, it says all event tags and all event categories. So for instance, if you want an event that is probably targeted towards a particular language group, such as Spanish, French, or bilingual, multilingual groups, you can add that category there. So it just helps to say this particular group of people are the targeted audience for that meeting.
I just wanted to comment very quickly that part of the work that we're doing within the School of Medicine and within IU Health has been trying to help providers navigate the number of resources that all of us contribute and really want to continue to utilize the information network in that way to get information out and for providers to have a place where they can, print flyers or share information if maybe they're, newer to the field or are, again, one of the top categories has been the diversity of languages and cultures and knowing what resources are there, which is why we added the additional category so that there's a place that they can go to. Or again, if your organization is one that offers a lot of diverse trainings, then they come to know you more as providers, as well as the families that they're recommending. So just want to see, again, that's part of our facilitator role is trying to give people one spot where they can find a number of information that we can help direct them out to groups like your own and really getting people in the right places and among the communities, where they feel supported and are able to learn and be a part.
Over to you, Julie.
Okay, thanks everybody. I'm going to give you a little bit of information about our LCCs, local community cadres, and an update about what we have going on here. One of the initiatives that we started in 2024 was our Let's Talk LCCs. We have a monthly meeting the second Thursday of each month. It's a topical meeting where we do have a guest speaker, but it's a very discussion based, discussion oriented time when we can talk together, brainstorm, listen to the information that's presented, and just have a really developmental time to collaborate and come up with some thoughts and solutions about things that are going on that impact us all. Our next meeting is going to be next Thursday, March 13th, and for everyone who was here earlier, Kim Dodson will be our guest again. So as she said, things are changing daily at the State House, so I'm sure she'll have all kinds of new information to present and share with us, but it'll give us more time. It's from 12 to 1:30, so during lunchtime. We'll have more time to talk with her and think about how we can help support her in her efforts to bring about the best advocacy efforts for the developmental disability population. So we do hope to see you then. There's a link here to register, and like I said, it is the second Thursday of every month. Go ahead. Go ahead. So local community cadres are really kind of a grassroots level where we focus on needs and gaps in programming, strengths in programming, things that are going on at a regional level. This is like so hard for me to read the exact thing here because I'm old and I also have bad eyes, but they're regional community networks where we are able to really focus on what's going on at a regional level and how regionally we can support the comprehensive plan throughout the state of Indiana. They're very action-oriented groups, and part of the reason we started the Let's Talk series is because after COVID, we found that it was difficult to get in-person engagement and enthusiasm really for meeting at this local level again, because everyone had kind of taken a break. So there have been some great results in that effort and having wonderful people that are reaching out to us and reestablishing and reestablishing community cadres at the regional level. You can see here our core 4 elements and everything that we do in the local community cadres are based on promoting collaboration, information sharing, training initiatives, and then disseminating material. So it's a great opportunity to participate and have a role in making things happen at a regional level. We have a video here that you can watch, and go ahead, Bodie. I keep talking. You can go to the next slide. So, Bodie, I don't remember if you were going to do this one or me. Want me to just keep going?
Yeah, so as part of our data focus, we like to
Something went wrong.
we always like to get information and just collect data to see who engages with us on all our initiatives. And just like Julie mentioned, we launched the Let's Talk series in 2024, and it has been really successful. The past couple of months, people have been engaging. As you can see from the infographic here, 95% of people who attend our Let's Talk series are actively engaged with questions, contributions, comments. We also have about 20 counties represented in our Let's Talk meetings monthly, and it comprises of majorly family members and caregivers, which we like and appreciate because we believe that most of these initiatives speak very well to them. And we usually have record good amount of attendance, increase in attendance monthly. And those who attend give us a 5-star rating via our satisfaction survey. So we just thought to share this information with you. And we also have, just like the previous slide on the IIACC, we also have our Let's Talk LCC RSVP by role. And you can see also here for February, we had family members and caregivers also taking the largest chunk, which is reflective of our previous infographic. And just as I mentioned, we always record these meetings because, like Julie mentioned, it's very informal, where we just share information. And so we always like to record just in case people weren't able to attend. You can always go back and watch. So we have our January and February recordings up on our website, and we have also dropped the link here for you. Or scan the QR code if you want to access these recordings. And also remember to save the date for our next month, or sorry, meeting this month, where Kim will also be coming to speak to us again on advocacy and legislation.
So, some of the big news that we have is that we are going to be having an in-person meeting, our first in-person meeting in 2025 to really get things going and reestablish and be able to meet in person and collaborate to plan for our central region local community cadre. Sarah Reeves, who is the autism coordinator in Franklin Township, has graciously really taken on the role of being a champion in this region and has helped us identify a location. We'll be meeting at the Franklin Township Learning Center in Franklin Township on the southeast side of Marion County in the evening on Tuesday, April 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. I don't know about everyone else. I personally have really missed having in-person meetings and being able to connect and see people face to face and have an opportunity to build capacity and build and plan together on a more personal level in person. So there's an RSVP to attend here, and we'll be doing a lot of discussion about how we're going to meet regularly, what's best for everyone, and how we're going to really meet the needs of people in the central Indiana region. So having said that, like I said, Sarah has been an awesome champion here, attending our Let's Talk series and really being able to support us in so many ways. And we're looking to just really continue to reach out to people who might be interested in doing that in their region of the state. We have several people here I know because of our Dizzy Award nominee, or not nominee, winner, from the Goshen area, and there's places all over the state. It's really important that we're meeting collectively or meeting regionally, but collectively all throughout the state, because each region has very different needs, very different things that they want to focus on. And we really, through the local community cadre effort, want to be able to help build capacity and focus on the needs of the area and filling gaps that might be pressing in that area, and providing information, providing trainings, and using all the resources that we have to help meet those needs. So some of the things that it would entail if you would like to be a champion, and like I said, there is a QR code here, is just being open to the idea of being part of a group that meets together, and I'm sure it'll be a combination of virtually in person, but meets together and learn from stakeholders. We really hope to have stakeholders from a variety of groups, educators, medical professionals, family caregivers, self-advocates meeting together to develop these plans and action items that we are going to be implementing throughout the state, to be an active voice in state level advocacy, doing some of those things that Kim talked about, and make sure that we are reaching out to the right people to promote need and promote needs and concerns that we have from each region, and willingness to share evaluation strategies and reporting tools. Data is very important, that we are making sure that we are focusing on the areas that need to be focused on, and the right information is getting out to the people that it needs to be getting out to. So we love to have anyone who's interested in helping us facilitate cadres in your region and promoting cadres in your region, and interested in being a champion, an LCC champion, to contact us, and we will help make that happen. So this is an awesome part of what we get to do, working with people where they are, and we hope to hear from many of you. Again, here's some more. I always think that I've wrapped up. Here's some more of expectations and things that you do, but it's partnering with community events, helping make sure that we know about events, helping make sure that the LCCs can be present at the events, and get information to organizations and businesses to enhance inclusivity and create a welcoming environment, identifying and sharing opportunities for people in your region to access trainings. We have many trainings that we can help bring to regions that will help focus on needs and help focus on getting information to people who need to have it, facilitate opportunities for members to connect over shared experiences. We really encourage all kinds of things, from having watch parties to IIACC, so maybe you can discuss things afterwards and think about what action items can come from the meetings that we have quarterly in your region, to having watch parties for our Let's Talk, so that there's just more collaboration and ability to interact with one another, to anything that you can think of. We can help facilitate that for you. We can help you come up with ideas. And then providing support to community and or family-led efforts that align with the LCC mission. So we appreciate anyone who wants to participate. So I'll keep going, and I'm moving on now to the Dizzy Award, our Dizzy Award, which is a great part of our meeting every week. Dizzy stands for Driver of Innovative Services and Implementation, and is awarded to an agency, organization, or initiative that drives the implementation of innovative programs and services in the field of ASD and other developmental disabilities. These things relate to the goals that we keep referencing in the State Comprehensive Plan. And we love being able to recognize someone who's doing good things in the state of Indiana and show that good things are happening. Because I think sometimes we get a little bogged down by the things that are causing us angst or causing us concern. And I love being able to show that people are really, really going above and beyond to make things better for individuals with developmental disabilities. So today's Dizzy Award winner is someone very special, and I had heard that she wasn't going to be here, but I see her here, so I'm so happy. Erica, welcome, and I'm so glad that you're here. Erica is a nominee that we got from someone who's been attending our Let's Talk series, this Essie Amanj, and she will be on the video that we will show. But Erica Martinez Santos is a dedicated natural helper and mother of a child diagnosed with autism. She comes from there, lives in the Goshen, Elkhart, Indiana area, and she volunteers at CHH, in St. John's Catholic Church in Goshen. She's committed herself to understanding and navigating life with autism. In 2024, she founded a support group for Spanish-speaking family members and caregivers of children with autism. Through this group, she provides valuable information and resources available in the community. Her goal is to help families navigate the systems and services available, ensuring they can benefit from programs and support their families. She sought to create a welcoming environment where family members, caregivers could share their experiences and concerns to ensure that no one feels isolated, but have a supportive network to turn to during the times of need and moments of burnout. So, Erica, not many people do this anymore. Really start a grassroots movement and provide a service that isn't being provided in an area in which they live. So we are so proud today to thank you for what you're doing for Spanish-speaking families in your part of the state. Thank you for being willing to go above and beyond and really devote time and effort to putting resources together to help these families. And we really want to partner with you in your efforts to the best of our ability. So I will be showing a film talking a little bit more about Erica. Erica is Spanish speaking, so there will be some subtitles.
I met Erica about a year ago, and she came as a volunteer recommended to me by Emily from one of the local elementary schools. She started working as a natural helper, which is a program we have here for immigrants who help other immigrants. And she joined our training and got excited about offering a group to support parents of children with autism. The thing that I appreciate about her so much is her passion for this work and her desire to include the entire family. She wanted to have a group that would include fathers and other caretakers, grandparents, and she has been very successful. I am just incredibly I have so much respect for her and the work that she has done and the passion she has for this work.
Hi, I wanted to talk about Erica and how I nominated her for this award. Erica and I worked together when her son came through the school I worked at. So I'm a school-based mental health liaison. I get kids connected to mental health care, and her son really could have used some skills and things, so we got her connected to get him the care he needed. Not only was she a huge advocate and willing to learn everything that she needed to care for her son, she also was able to start applying that and change their entire household around just to comply with what was best for his care. So then she wanted to use this knowledge to help spread awareness to her community, and she started this group for moms who have kids with autism, and it's a much needed group, especially as it's in Spanish, and a lot of our population can't speak English, so the resources that are available are limited. Not only does she work with these moms, but she also gets guest speakers to talk about their modes of expertise, and I was able to speak with these families about what offerings there are at the school and through the school to get them connected to mental health. So it's come full circle. We've worked together in a few capacities, and I'm really grateful that she was nominated for this award.
Hola, mi nombre es Erika Martínez. Tengo un hijo diagnosticado con autismo. Fue hace un año. Esto nos cambió la vida totalmente a los tres, es mi esposo, mi hijo y yo. Eso nos dio la fuerza para poder hacer algo nuevo. No tenía recursos para ir a llamadas por mí misma. No era fácil porque no entiendo mucho el inglés y sobre todo no lo hablo. Entonces yo hablaba y preguntaba primero si había quien hablara español. Me decían que no. Yo decía, ok, yo hablo después, muchas gracias, colgaba. Hablaba a otra agencia y era lo mismo, y hasta que encontré una agencia que se llama Golden Step para que me ayudaran en español. La verdad me abrieron las puertas, encantada de la vida. Su doctor nos recomendó con una doctora que fue la que nos diagnosticó. Eso nos llevó a otra persona que hablaba español. Entonces, una vez se me ocurrió presentarme en un grupo de escuela, en la escuela del niño. En esa escuela del niño nos dijeron que había una asesorías para ser voluntarios. Y dije, ok, vamos a ver de qué se trata. Me apunté, vine y voilà, Salud y Esperanza se presentó en nuestras vidas. Tomamos esa capacitación y hablando con el señor que nos dio la capacitación, le comenté una idea y me dijo, ¿y por qué no la haces? Me dijo, habla con tu supervisora, con Jane, y hazlo. Y dije, oh, ok, platiqué con ella. No veía claro porque tenía miedo, no sabía qué era lo que en realidad quería, qué era lo que en realidad buscaba. Entonces ella me dijo, no te preocupes, yo te ayudo, tú dime qué es lo que necesitas y adelante, te ayudo lo que se pueda. Entonces me espanté porque dije, ay Dios, es un proyecto tan grande y con mucha responsabilidad, pero dije, sí lo voy a hacer porque yo fui a buscar oportunidades y me abrieron las puertas. Entonces yo lo que quise hacer es abrirle las puertas a los padres de familia que no hablan español para guiarlos ya que tengan un diagnóstico de autismo o para alguien que tiene alguna duda sobre el autismo, dónde pueden guiarse, a dónde pueden ir. Ya tenemos agencias que han trabajado con nosotros para poder guiarnos en este paso a paso que es el autismo. Y así empezó este proyecto. Ahorita ya tenemos un grupo que se ha presentado 4 veces, una vez al mes. Y nada, tenemos más fechas abiertas ya, tenemos nuevos presentadores y le agradecemos totalmente a Salud y Esperanza por este gran impulso que me dio para poder hacer esto. Mi esposo, mi hijo están encantados, participan mucho conmigo, mi hijo sigue yendo a terapias, no es fácil. También hay una lista de espera tan grande, pero no hay que perder la fe. Esto es de tiempo, calma y mucho amor hacia nuestros hijos autistas, comprensión familiar y sobre todo nunca decir que no se puede. Todo se puede y más por ellos. Estamos en el camino y agradezco a Dios y a todas las personas que me han ayudado. Estoy demasiado agradecida a Salud y Esperanza, que fue el que nos apoyó y nos abrió las puertas para que este grupo se diera a conocer y esté creciendo.
Hi everyone, this is Kurt Bassett from the Hands and Autism And from the Hands on Autism staff, I'd like to congratulate Erica Martinez. Erica, keep up the good work.
So if that doesn't make everybody smile today and feel good, I don't know like what would. What a great video. Thank you, Erica, so much for everything that you're doing. Thank you for the people that have helped you along the way. And mostly thank you for Etsy for nominating Erica so that we can hear about her work and learn about her work and know what's going on with all that she's doing up there. There's one other person that wanted to say a few words. Parent liaison that worked with her in her school and helped her organize the support group, Emily Harriet. If you want to take your, yeah, there you go. Unmute yourself. And if you'd like to say a few words, we'd really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the neatest thing for me has been to see Erica's confidence grow. When I first met her, you know, there were a lot of things she didn't know or understand about her child. And in this time, she's gotten a diagnosis, she's gotten a lot of supports. And not only did she stop there, but she decided that she didn't want other families to be in the same situation that she had been, where they didn't know where to go, what services were available, to not have support. And that's why she started this group, Autismo con Amor. Felicidades, Erika, con este premio. Congratulations, Erica, on this award. It is well deserved, and you're giving so much back to your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Erica, if Emily, so you could make sure that Erica knows that we will be presenting her with an award, an actual certificate of award, and some gifts that we'll be sending. We also have many Spanish-speaking resources at Hands on Autism, and we'd like to put together some that we think might be supportive and beneficial to the support group that she has up there in Goshen. I'd love to come sometime. I don't know how much I can help because I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did, but thank you, Erica, so much for the work that you're doing and for reaching the families that you're reaching and for really representing what we try to highlight here with our Dizzy Award. I just want to also add to everyone who's listening, if you know anyone in your community or you have someone that you come in contact with that's doing great things and you want to nominate them for a Dizzy Award, it's a very easy nomination process. There's a QRL code here to do so, and it gives us the opportunity to share and highlight great stories like the one we had today. Thank you so much, Erica, and everyone who helped put this together for her. I think it's very important that we hear these stories. It helps motivate all of us. So I'm going to be handing the agenda kind of back over to Dr. Neal, and we're going to talk some about the IIACC vision and implementation, which is goal number 1 in the comprehensive plan that we keep referencing, and we'll do some work here. But that was a great way to a great thing to see. Thanks, everybody.
So as we dive a bit into what we laid the groundwork for at the beginning, or just after Kim Dodson had shared about legislative updates, the comprehensive plan is something that we'll be reviewing and revising this year because our intent is to make it a very living document rather than a document that's just referenced or is kind of static and on the shelves of the legislators and policymakers. But wanting to make progress on it and to make sure it's most representative of the voices in the community. Good, Bodhi. So the comprehensive plan is comprised of 8 goals. Each quarter, we try to focus on 2 goals so that we're able to do a deep dive into those, to share stories, share data, any updates on those. And as I mentioned, this time we're going to do 2 breakouts where we're going to just look at what the trajectories have been and then also what we want them to be moving ahead, as well as getting input on you all in terms of how you feel the state has made progress. This is a state document. Again, it's one that's overseen by FSSA and DEEDers and BEADS respectively. So we really want to be able to report on what you feel we've done in terms of making progress and what that should look like moving forward. In terms of goal 1, that really is just operating the IIACC and facilitating a diverse IIACC that is representative of the voices that are in our communities for those with autism and those that support those with autism. So what you'll see here are the 2 goals or sub goals within this broader goal. For historically, again, this document has grown a lot, meaning it used to be a pretty static, like just reporting on what was going on. We worked through the stages of putting it into a logic model, and then have tried to really work with IACC stakeholder organizations and members like yourself to make the language accessible as well. In the comprehensive plan, you will see, and we can drop the link in to access it. Actually, it's there. You'll see it as we move along. It'll be a link at the bottom as well. But Lohit might be able to drop a link into chat so you're able to access it online. But essentially, we're wanting to make sure that we have user-friendly language in the goal. And then also in the document, as I mentioned, there are references and citations for those that want to dig a little further or see where we're coming up with these particular action items and the literature behind it. So 2 areas for the goal 1 was just working to increase awareness and specific autism-related strategies and supports across all settings. The second one tied into accessing resources and sharing experiences of those with common needs across the state, and then increasing information sharing among decision makers about needs related to autism across the community. This really spoke to what Kim was sharing in terms of making your voice heard, sharing about your story, and helping people know that you're there as a resource. So specific action items that had been identified by IIACC stakeholders 2 years ago, we're making sure that autism awareness was possible by collecting high quality data and then effectively communicating findings across the communities. Holding or having social and community awareness and support to be able to help achieve optimal health and reach potential. Increasing awareness and acceptance to promote inclusion and connectedness. And then increasing autism awareness, because again, that piece can reduce stress and burnout. So wanting to foster more communities, such as the one that we were just discussing as being very tailored to your area and a much needed resource, and helping people understand the challenges of caring for an individual with autism, so that, again, that burnout and stress are reduced. The trajectory that was set by the IIACC 2 years ago and really guided the research, the speakers, the handouts, and information we were sharing on behalf of stakeholder organizations was reflected here. So again, when we look at a trajectory, somewhat it's self-intuitive in terms of how you read it, but what the goal was, so if you look at the top of the arrow there, on your right, it says that the IIACC really wanted to make sure there were representative, diverse voices across stakeholders. What we wanted to avoid, or the text box there at preventing negative events, was limited representation among key stakeholder groups. So not just a homogeneous group at the table, but very diverse representation, diverse experiences, and diverse voices. So that's been a very deliberate effort of ours over the last 2 years, and this and other efforts. The sub-activities that you see along that trajectory of planning for positive outcomes, we're kind of task analyzing or breaking those in terms of objective, kind of operationally defined activities. So the group that came up with the trajectory, and this was collated across small groups, we're having multiple means of engagement, sharing information about goal-related activities, increasing the diversity of those at the table, and then making sure we're integrating the perspectives among shared activities. And that's really where, again, the IIACC Facebook page and the Information Network website came out of, in terms of being able to have a resource sharing and a common portal, in addition to the really deliberate efforts that we're going to cover with some of the survey data and other activities. So what we want to get for you, from you, is just your impression. So we have a lot of data on the backside, but we really want to hear from you guys in terms of whether or not you feel like these action items have been addressed. So as I mentioned, these were 2 action plans, and we have a poll that we're going to launch here in Zoom. Had it open a second ago. So for goal 1, you should see questions pop up on your screen. Does everybody see that? For each goal, we want you guys to be able to indicate whether they have been addressed, so you feel like we've done them, they're in progress, or they're not addressed. And we just want your honest opinion. Again, we have added data, but it really is the whole council that is responsible for these. And if we're not making progress, we want to help carry that forward in the next trajectory, but to get your input. So again, the first activity is sharing information about IACC and activities that help meet the goals. And then the second one is inviting people with autism, providers, family and community advocates and consumers to join IACC activities.
Thanks to everyone participating. We currently have 17 people who are answering or have answered the poll. So thank you for participating. I think everyone is done voting. I think we can close the polls.
Okay, next slide.
Sorry. Yeah.
We're going to break out. You've heard us talk for a long time, and we've been one big group for a while. We're going to break out into two small groups. Julie and Bodie and some other team members will be within the group to help facilitate. But what we want you to do is reflect on the trajectory and the focus for goal 1, and think about where you want to see the IACC go in the next 2 years. So it really does set the plan and really emphasis for this year and next year. So again, this is specific to goal 1. And then again, you're welcome to go in. We'll share a link once we get in there for an interactive PowerPoint slide where you can be taking notes or adding things. But we'll also have our facilitators and other team members that can help make sure we have those in there. We will record those small groups again, just so that we can get the text and make sure that we're reflecting all of the voices and inputs as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms here.
How many minutes do we have so we can all be coming back?
Let's go ahead and
We
take
can all have
20 minutes.
Okay.
Highlights and what you guys talked through. I don't know, Bodie and Julie, if you want to share, or if you identified someone to share back, any key activities or things that were unique or of interest in the trajectories for goal 1.
I can share.
Julie, you're muted. Sorry.
I think my group was excellent, but I have to ask you, were you the one who was typing on my slides for me? Oh, it was my
No,
group.
he was.
Well, he was. Oh, actually, yeah, they did great. Yeah. Can we share that? Or no, is it possible to share the trajectory that we created? But I did write some notes, so either one is fine. So yeah, we talked about the possibility of having more of an emphasis, I think, either when we hands are at events, or someone mentioned just having us be at more events, or having there be more of an emphasis at events on what IACC is, what the purpose of IACC is, how to participate, and we did talk some or, about how some of that would happen through LCCs, but just having more of a presence where we're emphasizing IAC and the state comprehensive plan, having in-person meetings again, expanding the LCCs, having some of our slides maybe be, this was even having a less visually busy so that people could kind of see the slides and materials, really be less visually busy so that people could understand the highlights of the meetings and agenda, or meetings and the efforts more easily, reaching out to groups in more rural areas and making sure that they understood that IAC exists and what IAC is, but really having a focus on some of those rural and areas and groups that are don't have as much accessibility or as much exposure to IAC in the state plan. And that,
Thank you, Julie.
our trajectory is excellent.
And Julie, I know you're pretty much done, but yeah, I was trying to make the slide visually.
Oh, there you go. You did. Yeah, it's perfect. Thanks. So here's our trajectory. Yeah. So having representation of IAC at special ed, behavioral health led events and meetings, information up to local groups. We talked about the possibility of having of whether the 2.5 hour quarterly meeting schedule might be something that should be looked at or addressed, if that could be an impediment to some people's ability to participate. That was mentioned. And like I said, more information in rural areas, sharing resources.
Yes.
Yeah, you got it.
Some are from my team. So like the
Oh, okay, you did it. Sorry.
yeah, because it's a group slide, shared slide. So we talked about having more information. That might have talked about in your group, but like I'm just saying, in my group, you also mentioned like having more information sharing about IAC in rural areas, because it seems like we've done a good job in here, but then many people like in the rural areas don't know about IAC, and they also need to get that information. And then someone in my group also mentioned like sharing about autism and services to families through schools. So like an example, she mentioned like when like they have these meetings with families, they seem to be not to really have a good grasp about like, their child's diagnosis or things like that. So just making sure that we can maybe collaborate more with schools, because I know we do a good job of collaborating like, with other like stakeholders, but maybe like having a more focused led. I know we're already working towards that, even in hands, where we're working to make more resources available that can be shared out through schools. So I think that's one to really look at in the coming months. And then we shared about like preventing some negative events. We shared about trying to curb inaccurate information about autism on social media. So making sure that the information we share concerning autism or services are accurate. And then just in time to today's piece about legislation, just be mindful about how legislative updates about autism or developmental disabilities are being presented to families or stakeholders. And then another major one is telling people who, I don't know if this is my group though, but like making sure that people have an understanding that these meetings are not just for professionals alone, but like it's open to everybody.
Awesome. That's great conversation, and some of those have echoed areas of emphasis, but I think again it helps us in framing and making sure we're focusing on that in this year and in the next year. Can you share the main slides? Awesome. So want to give enough time to talk through goal 2 as well. So specific to goal 2. These were core areas, again, that we've worked to simplify and make accessible in the last revision, or the last update, I should say, for the comprehensive plan a couple years ago. One was exploring disaggregated or data that was broken apart at national, state, and local areas to look at cultural differences in autism diagnoses and services. Looking at having proportional representation in state and local groups and activities to identify barriers and build awareness about the impact of implicit bias, lack of understanding of differences, and then also coming around some commonalities in screening, treatment, education, housing, funding, and other equitable resources. And so again, that's been a big focus in speakers. I'm sure we can all continue to improve, but in the same regard, that was an area. And then promoting efforts of self-advocacy through awareness building, access to training and resources, and other opportunities. So again, the focus here is on that family and professional partnership. So really closing that gap between family members and professional partnerships. So some of the research that we had here as highlights, again, research is continuing to show that families' quality of life is affected by their perceptions that service needs are not being met. Challenges become amplified or greater when kids enter the school if the partnership is not positive or reciprocal. We know that partnering with families is key to developmentally appropriate practice, and there has to be a two-way, respectful and collaborative communication at the heart of that work together and that partnership. So this was a great illustration that our team had found that reflected that 85% of those that receive autism scholarships or funding still continue to report decreased financial stress. 75% of families could afford other necessary services and therapies that they otherwise would not have been able to without scholarships and support. So again, that was just, again, reflecting that partnership, the funding, or the resource accessibility as being a key part. So one of the pieces with this in terms of disaggregated data, and part of what we have done over time as a center, dating back more than 20 years, we had first began doing needs assessments for the state as HANDS began, which was in 2004. So we had started that a little beforehand to inform the initial development. So our data overall is more than 20 years, which is pretty amazing in autism because there's been so many changes. Most recently, however, we have been involved with the FSSA, so Family and Social Services Administration, Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, and specifically the Bureau of Disability Services as part of their innovative pilot project. And we were responsible for, or a key part of our role with that was doing a gap analysis for those that are on the waiver wait list. So again, with our different pushes with the needs assessment, usually it's with a specific target. It's always open, and we're always looking at the data at a state level, at regional levels, at local levels. So we're always happy to similarly share if you have particular questions in your area. But one of the things, like I mentioned in the last 2 years, due to the ARPA funding that our state had, was we did a very broad survey. I mean, broad in that it had a lot of questions, which meant there's a lot of variables in there. So everything from your school relationships to interactions with justice to what do they feel like they need or will get with the waiver. And again, what are barriers? How far are they traveling? There's a lot of questions nested in there. But that was, we worked with a team. So we had a very awesome team that had informed how we could really meet families where they were at and provide it in a format that was easiest for them to respond. So what we had done was send out a mailing. So everybody got a letter in the mail. And that then we repeated it with another letter, a simplified like flyer letter, and then with a postcard. So it was a 3-step, reach. And we were able to reach out to everyone that was specifically on the BEADS wait list. So really for that DD or FSW kind of wait list. So out of those that were on the wait list as of mid-year last year, we mailed those to people's homes, and surprisingly, we only got a few that came back, which meant that database was pretty on par. We did get about a 25% response rate, which is unheard of in survey research, to be honest. I'm sure many of us have sent out surveys and you get like 4 responses or 6 or maybe 100 out of your 800. So again, 25% was amazing. What that showed is those families got the survey and gave us solid responses. So it is a very diverse representation. So it's not just autism. So I want to give that caveat that it is for everyone that would be on the waiver wait list. So that's everyone that has, more of maybe a medically fragile or needed support more on physical disabilities or Down syndrome or other disabilities, any disability that fell under the Medicaid waiver. So again, very diverse responses across the state. We feel like it's very proportional and very representative of those that are on the waiver wait list. Among those that responded, and again, it was collected through Qualtrics, so they got a link that was tied to their own kind of de-identified survey, so that way we're able to tie some locale information, other information without being identifiable past that point. But among those that responded, everyone or more than 80% of those that did completed the whole thing and wrote in, some of the open-ended responses were more than 300 words. So they told their story. And so we're very excited about that and are working through some of that data. So again, we're reporting that so this funding, all of the IPP projects round out in this month. Several projects across the state were funded through March. So we'll be submitting a final report with some slicks and information that will be helping with Medicaid reset and some of the work that's going on. And then we'll also continue to be explored and work with other organizations like the Governor's Council and Department of Ed and some of the other groups that are at the table. So we do have some data here to show. And again, this is just initial analyses because we're looking at any of the responses where there's not 100%. Meaning that, for example, if it was disability and all respondents were autism, then we wouldn't kind of further disaggregate, that based on that question. So our initial analyses, we're seeing kind of questions that are of high interest, but also have a fair amount of split. So some of the highlights here, and again, this is, initial kind of data that we haven't, just wanted to give you guys some snapshots. So for the individual responses, so these are individuals on the waiver wait list. And if you aren't familiar with kind of the diversity on the waiver wait list, this is everything from infants, so maybe 2 and 3-year-olds, up to individuals that are in their 60s and 70s. So that's why we had both an individual survey and then the family caregiver that branched. So basically your role branched. So among those that were individuals with a disability or with lived experience, it was indicating who is providing additional or supplemental financial support. So oftentimes that was coming from family members. Some were receiving no financial support. And again, thinking about the data that we just shared or the research where having that financial support reduces, the stress, the burnout, increases accessibility. About 25% of the respondents were accessing government funds. And then we saw a smaller proportion with private insurance. So each of those are being further broken out with the other questions to figure out, who's paying for what and, what are they still missing and ways to meet needs. Other limitations in terms of accessing mental health services were, things, again, some did not know, others weren't facing limitations. But then we saw responses tied to transportation, cost of services being too high, or shortage of providers, or not having providers. So again, that's not a huge percentage, but we probably all recognize that transportation is a challenge. And it was definitely one that came out at the top. Again, this is just based upon the individual responses. So specific to family data, you'll see here, again, this was anyone that was identified in the waiver application as the primary caregiver. So in most cases, that is probably a parent or a custodian, a person that had custodial rights or, was the primary guardian. And we had them rate these based upon, to pick one, say they had multiple kids on the waiver wait list or multiple individuals. To really identify one of those individuals, so they weren't generalizing. So in terms of limitations they had in terms of accessing primary health care, they had rated, again, scheduling, costs, and shortages as some of the top challenges. in terms of paid for behavioral or psychiatric health. So again, wanting to really look at that full scope of whole services or looking at the full person, looking at how they're paid for behavioral or psychiatric services. And overwhelmingly, the majority are using private health insurance. So again, those two that we just mentioned might be tied together when we're looking at use of health insurance. So specific to goal 2, again, those are very brief snapshots, super rich data. Just wanted to let you know it was coming, and that's part of what our biostatistics team and other team members are working on right now. And we'll have a number of slicks that we'll share with you guys as we work through goal areas, and then again, that will be available. So for goal 2, we want to do our poll here. So you guys can similarly give us input on where you feel we've been at for goal 2. So you can see there are 4 action items there. And we want you to similarly just respond whether you feel like we've addressed it, it's in progress, or we have not addressed it.
It seems we have gotten it in all our responses, I think.
I saw the last couple, might have been a few people still working.
Please feel free to drop your responses. The recordings are anonymous, so it's just a data representation of, and help us know how far we have come or like what still needs to get done. Thank you.
So our current goal 2 trajectory, while you guys are potentially still working there on the poll, the key focus again as the main outcome was having access to trained medical and mental health care providers. What we wanted to reduce was the reliance on more restricted placements for treatment. I did love that Kim highlighted, but I also think it gave us a huge perspective that we're one of not a ton of states that have deinstitutionalized treatment. So again, I was less familiar with some of that data because that's, even though Indiana has some struggles and barriers, that was really encouraging to hear that was something that they have been very proud of, that gives us some, resilience in that way. So steps that we had were making sure we had adequate avenues for information sharing and consensus, accessibility of training and resources, using case-based learning opportunities and communities or cohorts of practitioners, where ECHO and some of those efforts have really played a big role. And then coordination of care with accessible patient info and facilitation. So what we want you guys to do, and this is in your slides, but want to then, for our last little group, and I know we're right at the end of time, but I want you guys to be able to get in your groups and do just a similar, maybe briefer discussion. So 10 minutes on this goal 2 trajectory. I'm going to go ahead and break out or open the breakout rooms once more so you guys are able to connect. And then share your screen so you're able to look at it and just look at goal 2, where we're at, and any other things so that we can bridge all of those thoughts together. So we'll reconnect at 11:25. You guys are there. You should be able to click on the breakout rooms down at the bottom, be able to join your breakout room and discuss goal 2. But if you just want to pull up the main slides for wrapping up.
I don't know how much you heard that last part.
Finish your sentence because that was a great thought.
I was just saying, like, I think providers could be responsible for making sure that families and participants are aware of what exactly are the goals and making sure that they feel comfortable to share their real feedback. So it can't just be on the parent or the participant. When I do my treatment plans, like I know it's for mental health, but like I always, every single time, rephrase it in the client and the parent's language. So although it may also include the clinical language that the therapist provided, I never want it to leave with the family and them say, I don't know what this is.
I agree. So, and it kind of, it really is a lot of what we've already said here about lack of trust, but as far as what we don't want, I don't want to see families or individuals become so frustrated that they give up or so frustrated that they leave the system or are not participating in the system.
So it looks like there was a lot of notes. Again, we'll use all of those as we're updating the trajectories. I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. So Bodhi, do you want to pull up the main slides? We're wrapping up as you guys are, and then we'll collate all of the information shared and then had recorded each of the small groups so that we have that as well for anything that we may have missed. So in wrapping up today, lots of great conversation, movement forward, and you can see in addition to speakers, we'll also have those legislative updates and then your Dizzy Award and a chance to really look at each of these goals to set the activities for the IIACC and LCC in particular. So we do have one last little survey, just sharing takeaways. We are very data driven, as you're hopefully getting the gist of. And so any input or feedback on things that were really helpful or takeaways, or even if it comes to you later and you email our hands email, we always appreciate any and all feedback since we're here to help support and serve you guys and those that we serve as well. And so as we look ahead to our meetings and ways to engage, if you haven't already, we do have our IIACC Facebook page that was developed at the request of the IIACC and wanting to have that as another way to access information and communication. So we would encourage you to follow along there. On the information network, as we were covering earlier, that was developed to help with provider navigation, family navigation, and to get out to the many great resources that each agency or community may have available. We're increasingly referencing and referring people there, and we'll really continue to work on making that as dynamic and representative as possible. But we'd encourage you to put up any events there, particularly as we work to increase, the diversity of access and representation. And then we also have our blog, so you're always welcome to submit blogs there. We do not have an Instagram page. Great question. Right now, it's just been Facebook, but I know some people are getting hesitant about Facebook, so it might be something that we should look into and setting up that on Instagram as well. Great question. So the blog, as I mentioned, we do have some up there that some of our individuals and families have submitted, but we always encourage people if there's a story or an update or hot topic, it's another great way to share information out through that particular resource. Yeah, Essie, do you have a question?
Along the lines of that social engagement, I would encourage you to have a LinkedIn page. There is quite a bit of really great resources and ways to have a networking community there that many people are able to utilize without as much problematic controversy.
Yeah. There's a lot of controversy with certain social media platforms, so I can appreciate that. So we do have a hands, your Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn page, but we can definitely work on setting that up between now and June, and be using that also. So thanks for the recommendations. So upcoming meeting dates, our meetings are held quarterly on the first Thursday. That's been kind of the mode for the last 11 years. So we have those from 9 to 11:30. But if that's not a great time for you, again, we record, share notes and summaries. We try to provide those far enough in advance so people are able to set aside that time. And whether you can join for a little bit, all of it, or specific portions, we always send out the agenda, but are also happy to answer questions if there's particular sections that you would like to catch. And again, have other opportunities to engage, like with the LCCs and other offerings. In those meetings, again, we'll share highlights, have speakers, and really be working through the goal areas in particular this year as we work to revise and update the comprehensive plan. So we hope to see you guys at the next one in June, but don't be a stranger between now and then, and we definitely look forward to your engagement in other ways. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for a good meeting, guys. Thank you so much for all your input.